Welcome, dear audience, to This Week in Clown World, the video series dedicated to reliving the events of the simulation because yes, it really happened and no, we weren't dreaming. Oh lordy lordy, the sun may be shining, but boy didn't some dumb stuff get to happening. Like having a very suspicious napkin on the table that you slyly put in your pocket alongside a little snorty spoon, and then the entire media apparatus come out to say it wasn't that Colombian special. Yeah, we'll get to that one when it comes. But there were other things like, I don't know, transing toddlers on the UK's National Health Service because sick ideologically possessed cult members haven't met a wood chipper yet. So freely get to confuse children and hope they grow into wonderful they-thems, complete with mutilated bodies and jacked up on hormone blockers. Yes, another tale from the weak men part of the cycle. But things are a-changing. The world is healing because ladies and they-them, z's and zers, the Soviet kingdom's leader is no longer a discount Stalin. Oh lordy no, we've got ourselves a bigot Starminator spitting cold hard facts. Yeah, we'll get to that one too. Alright then, introduction over. So audience, what do you get when you cross a failed state with a pensioner on Facebook? Do you get wholesome content? Maybe a parting of wisdom and knowledge? Yeah, like how you do. You get hate crimes of course, because my god, imagine having an opinion. Yes, it was revealed to the peasants just this week that back in 2023, when the Shiite whole of a country was under the rule of the fake Conservatory Party, you know, the same guys who legit pretend Labour are out of control with their commie-level speech suppression, when the reality is all Labour are doing are using the laws and policies that the Conservatories put into place. Anyway, a pensioner was big mad at the pro-plasticine whingers on the internet, so commented to one random guy who was getting big mad at Israel that his rhetoric was one step away from hunting Jews down at Heathrow. You know, in reference to that time a bunch of muzzies literally hunted Jews at Dagestan airport. And then, to everyone's horror, absolutely no one complained. Literally no one said a thing. Argument was had, and that was it. The grown-ups left the room. But that type of conversation doesn't have a license in this shithole. So 6 police officers who read that post on the internet armed themselves with pepper spray and batons, then went and arrested that 71-year-old man. And you'll be thinking, right, well, that is it then. Story over. Just another day of living in the Soviet shithole. Not so fast, audience, because while searching his house, because yeah, for some reason a disagreement on the internet leads to a full health search, it was revealed that he had very Brexity things, and for some reason that's also a hate crime worthy of police attention. Yay, not wanting to be part of a political union that can remove sovereign powers is totally a far-right ideology. Anyway, long story short, he was cautioned under law for anti-Semitic hate crimes after quite literally defending Jewish people on the internet. My god, how the fuck did the Soviet kingdom end up this way? We used to be an empire and a global ass kicker. What has happened to us? Oh wait, sorry, I just did the root cause analysis and it turns out that the peasants keep voting for it. Yes, they've listened very carefully to the government inserted propaganda into their shows like EastEnders and Coronation Street. Govern me harder, daddy! Because lord oh lord, someone might get offended. Okay, so meanie pensioner man has disagreement on the internet and the police literally arrested him for it and then had to apologize. What's next? Well, it turns out that the protectors of the Soviet kingdom aren't as shite as the rest of them and managed to stop a terrorist incident before it happened. And that is pretty cool, right? You know, stopping the far-right extremists terrorizing the streets of these once fine lands. Can't have them blowing up the common man for totally evil conservative ideology now. Oh wait, sorry, it was actually an Iranian man who was arrested alongside a bunch of other Iranians, and they managed to get into the country on a fucking dinghy boat. And for some reason, we just couldn't deport him, so instead gave him a house and we literally have to pay for it. Get the fuck out of here. This is a type of Shiite that these mass immigration traitors have caused. We are in actual legit danger because a bunch of blokes just rolled up onto our shores in a dinghy with 0 background checks, and all those people who done their refugee welcomes protest can go off circle jerking each other at how virtuous they are while women are getting raped and children blown up. Fantastic. We definitely used to rule the waves, right? But things be a-changing. this weak men cycle has carried on for far too long. And Keir Starmer, the man who completely ignored the Pakistani child grape gangs because of murder versatile, suddenly got a program update from Tony Blair. You know, one of our old prime ministers who caused all of this? And now he has become none other than the Starminator, our unlikely lord and savior of this once fine land. And legit, he has become the most based prime minister we've had for fucking decades. Yes, for as long as I have lived, the Conservative Party has promised in every manifesto that they would lower immigration to the tens of thousands while backdooring policies that led to millions upon millions of low-skilled workers and people who straight up just don't work at all arriving on these damn shores. And we all have to pay their benefits. But the peasants of the failed state are now fucking fuming that Ahmed, the local boatman, gets a house while they literally have to suck the mold off the walls because baked beans are just too damn expensive. So the Starminator, having already dropped his greatest diss track a few months ago by telling the Soviets peasants that the Conservatory's legit reform policies to purposely import millions upon millions of people with zero skills into the country, he now got to dropping his platinum track. My fellow British humans, this mass immigration into the country is driving down wages and making houses unattainable and unaffordable. And this whole Otto SpaghettiOs was a result of the Conservatories fucking with policies and doing it on purpose. And as a totally legit human myself, who isn't shitting himself over the rise of the Reform Party, all these Ahmeds are risking making us an island of strangers. Therefore, I will lower immigration by basically undoing everything the Conservatories did. I will give myself a license to do what is needed to not lose my job in the next election. Even though up until this point, I was quite literally begging for more mass low-skilled immigration. Yes, hate crimes aside, Keir Starmer actually addressed the dangers of mass immigration, and that has caused a biblical meltdown by all the weird cult members who don't have to live with the consequences of their policies. Cried all the daytime talk hosts. The Starminator is actually listening to the electorate, who are wrong because diversity is our strength, even in my gentrified area I live, where it's a 99% white neighborhood. I have never been to Birmingham before, but I've heard it's lovely. Yeah, you know it's a clown world when the Labour Party are quite literally dicking over the Conservatories. Although, let's be honest, that ain't hard. But some may be asking, why this sudden shift? Why are we being permitted this national conversation without getting arrested for hate crimes? Was it because of the Orange Man's policies? Or was it because of the rise of the Reform Party, who one day wanted to deport all the illegal boatmen and then the next day don't want to do any of that? Well, dear audience, it was none of those. Let me introduce you to one hell of a drug, cocaine. Yes, indeedy. On a train back from Captain Cocaine Man Zelensky, Starmer, Macron and that German guy Mertz were having a different kind of trip. A Colombian trip. So let's break this one down. While on the train, the media burst into a room where Midget Macron, the trans enthusiast, and that German guy Mertz got to greeting the Starminator. And upon returning to their seats, Macron, the midget trans enthusiast, suddenly realizes, Sacre bleu, I have left me gear on the table, and I do not have a license for that. And so picks up the suspicious package and slyly puts it into his pocket while German man hides the sniffing spoon. Pretty bloody obvious, right? Of course it is! I would have done the exact same thing if I were cracking rocks with the German man. But suddenly, after everyone picked up on this Otto SpaghettiOs, because it could not be any more obvious what was happening here, it was up to the media to protect their precious paymasters instead of actually doing journalism because they're all a bunch of dirty frauds. That weren't no Colombian snow in a wrapper, it was a napkin, you dummies. And if you are asking questions, then you're indeed a far-right extremist parroting Russian disinformation. And as for that clear sniffing spoon, it was to stir their water, obviously. Because come on, everyone loves stirred water. It definitely tastes better, am I right? Jeepers crimes could get any more obvious in their bias. If that was a napkin, then why hide it with a sleight of hand and place it into the pocket? And why, like always, was the media weaponized to parrot all the exact same line, demonizing anyone who has questions because they're a Putin apologist? Get the fuck out of here. Let it snow, boys. But while the Starminator was rubbing that sweet, sweet snow into his gums, over in the Soviet kingdom, someone was trying to burn down his house. What in the name of English tea bags is going on here? Yes, once the Starminator became the prime tampon of the failed state, he had to move to Downing Street, so rented his house out. And that was that. Until in the dead of night, a mysterious man who may or may not have been his drug dealer tried to burn down his house with innocent people inside. My god, this country's retarded! Now, it don't take a genius to work out, I don't like the Starminator, and I think he's dangerous to our freedoms. But to quite literally burn his house down, that is some dumb shite, because not only did it put the lives of innocent people in danger, this type of shite only invokes a more stronger response that oppresses us even more. But then again, there is something a little bit strange here, because you would have thought, alright, so that was just a far-right bigot, right? Possibly Nigel Farage. But you would be wrong. Dead wrong with AIDS, because it's actually a Ukrainian bloke. You fucking what, mate? Shouldn't he be in Ukraine right now getting kidnapped off the streets because the grown adults are too retarded to end a dumbass war? Now who cares, he's now under arrest, and no doubt his excuse will be cocaine debts. Alright then, that was a whole load of Starminator news. The guy is certainly living the high life, and any more of his bigotry, I may end up voting for him in the next election. Can't blame me, he's the only conservative leader we've got. And he's smashing blow. What's there not to love? So is there anything else? Yeah, gay navy vessels, because for some reason we still can't drop the LGTV shite. Yes, very necessary, everyone clapped, no one cares. When is this crap going to die to death? The argument was one like decades ago. People can literally line up in a train, do a dirty road fucking conga for all we care. Why in 2025 is any of this necessary? I mean, I put my car in for an MOT a few weeks back, and the sign on the door said LGTV friendly with the bloody pride flag. You're saying you'll serve the gays by putting a tire on the car really nicely? That's so stunning and brave. I bet whoever put that sign up really made a difference, and the collective gays applauded your efforts. You know, in a country where it's completely legal to be a homosexual with protections under law. No one cares. Okay, what else happened this week? South African refugees, obviously. You know, the South African farmers who are currently under threat of having land taken and straight up murdered, while the fourth largest party in the country is quite literally calling for a white genocide. Well, if I've ever seen a refugee, it ain't those guys, because you'll never believe this audience, they're not Ukrainian. So they definitely can't be the refugees. Well, that's what the media is saying, while at the same time championing murderous gang members to remain in the United States of America. Yes, the orange man alongside his African friend took one look at South Africa, saw the politicians selling out stadiums calling for white people to die, and said, you know what, we should probably help those white fellas, because oh lordy lordy, genocide ain't cool. And that caused an utter meltdown by the media, who, as the disgusting maggots they are, downplayed the brutal murders of the farmers while telling us that it's all a far-right conspiracy theory. What a bunch of rats. Now, I have a few Afrikaner mates. Hell, my soon-to-be, I guess, stepdad is an Afrikaner, and he worries the fuck about his kids who are still living in South Africa because of how much it has turned into a shithole and how the persecution of white people is leading to straight-up murder. They all know it's happening, we have enough reports about it, and to hear the cretinous creatures downplay Shiite like this, which is easily researchable on the internet, is the reason why the corrupt media needs to die as fast as possible. But of course, wrong type of refugee, white liberals most affected. Anyway, that's enough of that. Anything else happened this week? Well, yes, solar panel kill switches. Now you may be thinking, oi oi, what's this all about? Do you have a license to turn off that solar panel? And the answer is China. Yes, across the American land stand arrays of solar panels feeding that sweet gravy of energy infrastructure. And that's great, solar panels aren't actually that bad. Well, if they're put on the roof of a house, of course, instead of destroying farmlands and meadows. Apparently, in all these solar panels, the Chineses have included a kill switch, so at any time, if the orange man annoys Winnie the Pooh, well, hot dang, all of that captured sun will now be useless because the Chineses have turned it off. Wow, I can't believe a potential adversary who the entire world exported their manufacturing capabilities to, and also have a Belt and Roads initiative to become the global superpower, would use tactics to undermine the most powerful nation on Earth just to get a step ahead. Yes, it is entirely predictable that this type of shite would happen. Should have just made your solar panels at home, boys. But I guess that's another example of why over-globalization is a retarded idea, especially if they're literally adversaries. Anyway, fuck the media, the dirty smear merchants, and all hail the Starminator. Starmer, the last savior of the Soviet kingdom. Big shout out to our boys and guys. My mummy told me not to kiss the bigots, but she didn't realise I don't listen to women, so pucker up boys, we're going to Paris. Love you all very much, Lee.
Subscribe button.
Is always right.